The Empire Grande Hotel loomed over Chicago's glittering skyline, its glass and steel facade a shimmering testament to wealth and exclusivity, where chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, so polished they seemed to hold the reflections of the city's elite, a world of tailored suits and diamond earrings, where every gesture was calculated and every guest scrutinized for their place in the hierarchy of privilege. And into this sanctum stepped Madame Wei, a Chinese heiress in her late 50s, her silk qipao flowing like liquid midnight, its delicate embroidery a quiet nod to her heritage, her silver-streaked hair swept into an elegant chignon that spoke of refinement earned through decades of navigating global boardrooms. Yet her arrival with two ancient rosewood trunks carved with intricate lotus patterns that seemed to whisper of a bygone era drew raised eyebrows and stifled whispers from the staff. Their practiced smiles barely concealing judgments formed before she uttered a word as she approached the grand reception desk. Her modern Louis Vuitton suitcase trailing behind the weathered trunks, like a bridge between past and present. Charles Rutherford, the hotel's manager, stood waiting, his impeccably tailored suit and slicked-back hair, a mask for the impatience that flickered in his pale blue eyes, his greeting a perfunctory, "Welcome to the Empire Grande, ma'am. May I have your name delivered?" with a tone that suggested he'd already sized her up as a nuisance, and when Wei responded in halting English, "Wei, reservation, Heritage Suite," her voice soft but firm, as she produced a leather-bound notebook with her name written in elegant Chinese calligraphy. Madame Wei Rutherford's smile tightened his gaze, darting to her trunks as she spoke rapidly in Mandarin, gesturing emphatically to her phone's confirmation email and pointing to a specific suite number, her urgency clear but lost on him. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't follow. Do you have someone who can translate?" he said, his voice slowing, as if addressing a confused child, prompting a smirk from Derek, a bellhop in a crisp navy uniform who leaned toward Laura, the concierge whispering, "Another rich foreigner," who didn't read the fine print, their chuckles echoing faintly across the lobby, where affluent guests, mostly white, their Rolexes glinting, and Hermes bags slung casually over shoulders, paused to observe the unfolding scene, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled disdain, as Wei tapped her phone again, showing today's date on the booking, only for Rutherford to shake his head. "There's been a mix-up. The Heritage Suite isn't available until tomorrow." His tone final dismissing her insistence with a wave. "Please, take a seat in our lounge. We'll resolve this shortly," directing her to a velvet armchair where she sat a solitary figure amid the bustle, her trunks arranged like sentinels beside her, drawing stares from passers-by who whispered about their oddity. One socialite in a Chanel dress murmuring to her companion, "She must be one of those overnight millionaires from China. No idea how to behave in a place like this." Her friend, nodding, probably bought her way in, but look at those trunks. Tacky. Their laughter, sharp and careless, oblivious to Wei's wealth amassed through her family's tech empire forged in the crucible of post-war survival. Her limited English and cultural differences rendering her an outsider. In their eyes, a curiosity rather than a peer. And across the lobby, Aisha Carter, a 27-year-old black housekeeper, moved with the quiet efficiency of someone trained to be invisible. Her neatly pressed uniform and tightly coiled hair blending into the background as she pushed her cleaning cart, her dark eyes scanning the room with a keenness honed by years of observing without being noticed. A survival skill in a job where speaking out meant risking reprimands, or worse yet. Something about Wei's dignified isolation caught her attention, the way she clutched her notebook like a shield, her posture unyielding despite the staff's neglect. And as Aisha adjusted a vase of orchids near the lounge, she noticed a small object fall from Wei's purse. A jade lotus pendant, its translucent green surface, carved with such precision, it seemed to pulse with life under the chandelier's glow. A piece so exquisite, it spoke of heritage and value far beyond the hotel's ostentatious decor. And Aisha hesitated, her fingers tracing its smooth contours, knowing that handing it to the front desk risked it being misplaced by staff, eager to curry favor or pocket valuables, memories of her own belongings lost during shifts flashing through her mind. And instead, she made a choice, stepping out of the shadows of her role and approaching Wei's table, her heart pounding as she broke every unwritten rule of her position. "Excuse me, ma'am, is this yours?" she asked in flawless Mandarin. "Ni diule jeje ma," her voice steady, despite the weight of the moment, and Wei's guarded expression shattered into astonishment, her eyes widening as she grasped Aisha's hands. "Ni hui shuo?" "Zhongwen," she whispered, disbelief melting into relief, her fingers trembling as she took the pendant, and Aisha nodded. "Yes, I studied in Shanghai for 2 years during college," explaining how her linguistics degree and time abroad had gifted her fluency, a skill she'd buried in the monotony of housekeeping to pay off student loans. And Wei, clutching the lotus pendant, invited her to sit, pouring out her frustrations in rapid Mandarin. "I've been trying all day to explain. They don't understand my need for the heritage suite or secure storage for my family artifacts. I'm here on a mission, and they treat me like I'm lost." Her voice thick with exhaustion and indignation, and Aisha, sensing the depth of her purpose, translated for Rutherford, who emerged from his office, his demeanor shifting from irritation to surprise. "You speak Mandarin, Carter. Why wasn't this in your employee file?" He demanded, his tone a mix of suspicion and opportunism, to which Aisha replied evenly, "It wasn't required for housekeeping, sir." Her calm exposing his oversight, and Rutherford, seizing the chance to salvage the situation, reassigned her on the spot. "You're with Madame Wei for her stay. Handle her needs." His words clipped, betraying a calculation to keep the wealthy guest placated while keeping Aisha under scrutiny, and as Aisha escorted Wei to a hastily prepared suite, the heiress revealed her true purpose in hushed tones. "These trunks hold my grandfather's legacy. He owned this land before it was stolen from him after the war. I'm here to find proof," her eyes glinting with determination, as she described Li Chen, a visionary who arrived in America in the 1930s, building a real estate portfolio only to lose it to fraud during post-World War II anti-Asian sentiment. And Aisha, moved by the story and her own experiences of being dismissed, her degree, overlooked her skills, ignored, agreed to help, her mind racing with possibilities as she recalled rumors of a locked archive room in the hotel's basement, glimpsed during late-night inventory shifts. And that evening, under the guise of assisting Wei with unpacking, they planned a covert visit, Aisha securing a spare key from the maintenance closet, where she'd once organized cleaning supplies. Her heart swelling with a mix of fear and purpose, as she realized this alliance could upend the hotel's polished facade, the lotus pendant now a symbol of trust between two women whose voices had been silenced by different systems of exclusion, their shared resolve igniting as they prepared to navigate the labyrinth of secrets hidden beneath the Empire Grande's opulent surface. The lobby's grandeur no longer a barrier, but a stage for their quiet rebellion, where a single act of empathy returning a pendant set in motion, a chain of events that would challenge decades of buried injustice, the chandeliers above casting light on a truth that refused to stay hidden any longer. As Aisha and Wei stepped into the unknown, united by language and a shared hunger for justice, ready to unearth a legacy that could rewrite the hotel's history and their own. In the shadowed underbelly of the Empire Grande Hotel, where the opulent facade above gave way to dimly lit corridors lined with humming boilers and forgotten storage crates. Madame Wei and Aisha Carter embarked on their clandestine quest. Under the cover of midnight, the air thick with the scent of dust and rust, as they descended via a service elevator that creaked like a reluctant confessor. Wei's elegant qipao, exchanged for practical dark slacks and a hooded jacket to blend into the night, while Aisha, in her familiar housekeeping uniform, led the way with a flashlight gripped tightly, her pulse racing from the thrill of defiance rather than fear, knowing that uncovering the truth about Wei's grandfather Li Chen could shatter the hotel's pristine reputation built on decades of deception. And, as they navigated the labyrinthine basement past locked doors marked with faded labels like archives and maintenance, Aisha whispered warnings about security patrols, her knowledge of the hotel's underbelly, a weapon honed from years of unnoticed labor, and Wei, her eyes sharp with determination, clutched a small map sketched from family lore passed down through generations, pointing to a section labeled as a sealed utility room that she believed concealed a vault where Li Chen had hidden proof of his ownership before fleeing wartime prejudice. The map's yellowed edges trembling in her hands as they approached a nondescript wall panel, its paint peeling like old secrets. And with a crowbar pilfered from the maintenance closet, they pried it open, revealing a narrow passageway choked with cobwebs and the faint echo of dripping water. Their footsteps muffled on the concrete floor as they pressed forward the beam of Aisha's flashlight, dancing across rusted pipes until it landed on a heavy steel door etched with a faded lotus symbol matching Wei's pendant, a lock that yielded to an antique key Wei produced from her bag, passed it down from Li Chen himself. And as the door swung open with a groan, they stepped into the concealed vault, a time capsule of betrayal, where dusty shelves held leather-bound ledgers and sealed envelopes yellowed by time. Wei's breath catching as she rifled through them, unearthing deeds from the 1940s, showing Li Chen's name as the rightful owner of the land, forged signatures by the hotel's founders, men like Rutherford's ancestors who had exploited anti-Asian laws and wartime hysteria to seize the property through intimidation and falsified documents claiming it as their own amid whispers of national security threats. The papers detailing how Li Chen, a brilliant architect who had immigrated in the 1930s and designed fusion buildings blending Eastern elegance with Western grandeur, was forced to flee after anonymous threats and frozen assets, leaving behind this vault as his final act of resistance. And Aisha, her eyes widening at the historical weight, photographed each page with her phone, digitizing the evidence as Wei translated faded Mandarin notes, revealing bribes to officials and shell companies used to launder the theft. But their triumph was short-lived, as a sudden clatter echoed from the corridor, the sound of footsteps approaching, forcing them to douse the light and hide behind a stack of crates, hearts pounding as Rutherford's voice carried through the darkness. "Check every corner. That Chinese woman's been asking too many questions," accompanied by two shadowy figures, suspicious guests who had checked in days earlier, posing as a couple, but linked to the owning Phillips and Eaton families. Their accents too polished, their questions too probing. During casual lobby encounters and as the search party passed, tampering with nearby cameras by ripping wires and stealing a spare key Aisha had left in the maintenance room. The sabotage clear in their muttered plans to erase any loose ends. Wei and Aisha barely escaping through a ventilation grate that led to the loading dock, emerging into the cool night air, gasping for breath. The digitized files safe on Aisha's cloud, but the vault now compromised, prompting Wei to reveal more about the threats. "These families have buried this for generations. They'll stop at nothing." Her voice laced with urgency as they returned to the suite, only to find it subtly ransacked, drawers ajar, a hidden microphone planted under the desk, escalating the danger and forcing Aisha to recruit Jamal, a sympathetic night shift janitor she'd bonded with over shared stories of workplace slights, his broad shoulders and quiet demeanor hiding a tech-savvy side from his community college days, and Jamal motivated by his own family's history of redlining. Injustices agreed to help venturing to the city's public records office the next day under the guise of an errand, combing through microfiche archives that confirmed the fraud-altered deeds from the post-Wapper II era, showing Li Chen's signatures, mismatched newspaper clippings of mysterious evictions of Asian owners amid wartime paranoia, and tax records revealing payoffs to officials tied to the founders. And as Jamal smuggled back copies, dodging a tail, he noticed in a black sedan parked outside the trio, digitized everything. Wei facing anonymous calls, warning her to leave the past buried or join it. Her resolve hardening as she confided in Aisha about Li Chen's final letter, hidden in the vault, pleading for justice from beyond the grave. And with the evidence mounting, Aisha risking her job and safety leaked select files to a local investigative journalist named Elena Vargas, a tenacious reporter known for exposing corporate corruption, meeting her in a dimly lit coffee shop across town where Vargas's eyes lit up at the documents. This could blow the lid off Chicago's real estate history, she promised. And within hours, the story went viral, headlines screaming, "Empire Grand's secret hotel built on stolen Asian land." Amid post-war racism triggering protests outside the hotel, with signs demanding justice for Li Chen and end erased histories. The board scrambling in emergency sessions as stock prices dipped and high-profile guests canceled, while Rutherford doubled down in a frantic press conference accusing Wei of fabricating claims for extortion and firing staff suspected of leaks. His allies, the fake guests, intensifying surveillance with hidden cameras in the lobby. But the public outcry swelled, celebrities sharing the story on social media, civil rights groups filing amicus briefs, and as threats escalated, a brick through Wei's suite window with a note reading, "Stop digging." The women barricaded themselves, Jamal standing guard, as they prepared for the inevitable showdown, the suspense building like a storm over the city. Every shadow, a potential spy, every whisper, a clue, the vault's secrets no longer buried, but exploding into a force that challenged the hotel's empire teamwork, forging unbreakable bonds amid the risks, the chapter pulsing with the adrenaline of pursuit, and the high stakes of unmasking power's hidden crimes. Far from the personal introductions of before, now a web of intrigue where every discovery heightened the peril, drawing them deeper into a battle that could redefine justice in the shadows of luxury. With the vault's secrets now public ammunition in a war of words and wills that had ignited Chicago's media landscape, Madame Wei and Aisha Carter stood at the precipice of victory as the Empire Grande Hotel's board convened in a glass-walled penthouse conference room overlooking the city's restless lights, the air thick with the scent of leather briefcases and desperation where suited executives shifted uneasily in ergonomic chairs, their faces etched with the realization that decades of unchallenged privilege were crumbling under the weight of viral headlines and mounting lawsuits. And as Wei entered, flanked by Aisha and a phalanx of civil rights attorneys, her presence commanding in a crimson power suit that evoked the fire of her grandfather Li Chen's unyielding spirit. The board chairman, Elias Harrington, a silver-haired patriarch whose family ties traced back to the original fraudsters, cleared his throat and extended a hand that trembled slightly. "Madame Wei, we've reviewed the evidence. It's compelling." His voice laced with reluctant concession, but Wei, her eyes steel, refused the gesture, laying out a dossier thicker than a novel on the polished oak table. "Compelling. its irrefutable forged deeds, witness testimonies from descendants of those evicted, and the vault's artifacts authenticated by international experts. Your predecessors didn't build this empire. They stole it from visionaries like Li Chen, exploiting wartime fears to erase Asian contributions from Chicago's skyline. Her words slicing through the room like a blade, prompting murmurs from the board. As Aisha stepped forward, her voice steady and resonant. And it's not just history. The discrimination continues. Your staff profiled Madame Wei from day one, assuming her wealth was new or suspect because of her heritage, just as they overlook employees like me, but no more. Her testimony amplified by leaked internal memos showing Rutherford's emails deriding troublesome foreigners. And as Harrington attempted to deflect with offers of a generous settlement and a plaque in the lobby honoring Li Chenwei, laughed, a sound sharp and unyielding. A plaque for land worth billions today. No, we demand 30% ownership restored to the Chen Foundation, the vault preserved as a public exhibit, and Rutherford's immediate termination with no severance. The demands landing like grenades, splintering the board into factions. Some whispering about stock plunges and boycotts from Asian American business groups. Others fearing personal liability, as class action suits from other displaced families surfaced, inspired by the exposé, and in a tense vote broadcast live by a whistleblower staffer on social media, the board capitulated 7-3 Harrington, signing preliminary papers amid flashes from reporters who'd infiltrated the lobby below. Rutherford bursting in mid-meeting, his face a mask of rage. This is blackmail. My family made this hotel what it is, only to be escorted out by security he'd once commanded his downfall swift and public, as ethics investigations revealed his tampering with cameras and threats. The media dubbing it the fall of the empire's gatekeeper, and with justice secured, the transformation began in earnest, Wei assuming an advisory role to rebrand the hotel as a hub of cultural fusion, renaming the lobby the Lotus Atrium, with exhibits showcasing Li Chen's blueprints, elegant sketches, blending pagoda curves with Art Deco lines that had been suppressed for generations. The vault retrofitted into an interactive museum where visitors could scan QR codes for augmented reality tours of pre-war Chicago's Asian districts erased by urban renewal that favored the powerful, and Aisha elevated to cultural director-designed programs like multilingual workshops and heritage dinners featuring dishes from Shanghai's golden age, drawing a diverse clientele that boosted occupancy by 40%. As influencers flocked to the reborn landmark, her initiatives extending to staff reforms, mandatory anti-bias training led by experts, scholarships for underrepresented employees pursuing degrees, turning the hotel from a symbol of exclusion into a model of equity, where housekeepers like her former self could rise without invisibility, and Wei channeling her restored stake into the Chen Justice Foundation launched grants for families reclaiming lost properties nationwide, partnering with historians to digitize forgotten archives and lobby for reparations laws. Her speeches at galas echoing Li Chen's vision. We don't seek revenge. We seek restoration, for when one legacy is reclaimed, it illuminates paths for all, inspiring a ripple effect as similar cases emerged in cities like San Francisco and New York, where immigrant entrepreneurs' descendants unearthed buried deeds, the Foundation's hotline buzzing with stories of stolen dreams. And on a personal level, Aisha reflected in her new office overlooking the atrium, the lotus pendant around her neck a talisman of change, mentoring young staff like a Latina intern whose family had faced similar erasures, sharing how one act of translation had snowballed into systemic upheaval, while Wei, visiting from her Beijing headquarters, hosted a private ceremony in the Vault Museum reuniting the jade artifacts, with Li Chen's great-grandchildren flown in for the occasion, tears mingling with laughter as they traced their fingers over the blueprints. The space no longer a tomb of secrets, but a living archive. And as threats lingered, anonymous emails from disgruntled heirs vowing revenge quickly traced and neutralized by the Foundation's cyber team. The women forged ahead, Aisha expanding programs to include virtual reality simulations of historical injustices, drawing global acclaim and turning the hotel into a pilgrimage site for activists. Wei funding international chapters to address colonial land grabs in Asia and Africa, their partnership evolving into a mentorship, where Aisha learned Mandarin business idioms and Wei embraced American advocacy tactics. The chapter weaving a tapestry of triumph and forward momentum, where justice wasn't an endpoint, but a catalyst for enduring evolution. The Empire Grande no longer a monument to theft, but a beacon of reclaimed futures, echoing with diverse voices that refused to be silenced. The city's skyline forever altered by the light of uncovered truth, a narrative of legacy not just restored, but multiplied, inspiring viewers to question their own surroundings for hidden histories waiting to be honored.